Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg, and it's Sunday again, so time for another Hanging with Mangg. And yeah, it was well, winter has struck good old Wisconsin. We have snowfall now, and it's gonna be a long winter, I think. We're just going to be doing some of the side stuff here in Assassin's Creed Unity. Because, you know, I got to do this all anyway, so might as well just do it on Hanging with Mangg. Alright. Let's see. I took a poll. Most of you probably know about this. I took a poll for what I wanted my focus to be for the next couple weeks, because I have a lot of stuff going on. And when I put that up, I figured that Assassin's Creed would be pretty much at the top, because I just started it. It's brand new. You know, it's the next gen one, so people are curious about it. You know, if they're somewhat fans of the series and they don't have a next-gen console, is it worth it? Blah, 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 blah. So I figured that would be at the top. But I figured also Lords of the Fallen would be higher up than it ended up being. And I did not think board game stuff would be as high as it ended up being. It ended up getting 8 votes compared to Assassin's Creed's 10. So that surprised me quite a bit. Because I just figure, you know, pretty much every week I just blather on about board games and, you know, a couple people talk about it in the comments, but for the most part it's just, oh, Mangg and his silly board games. So I was pleased that people are interested in that stuff, because I'm interested in it, so that's good. So yeah, there will be, Assassin's Creed will be my focus. For a little while now, but board game stuff will definitely keep happening. And so, speaking of board games, I got a comment on a video very recently from Vestilence, and actually, let me bring up his comment so I can read it verbatim. Okay, he said, oh, hold on. Nope, because Gmail doesn't want to show you the whole thing. Alright, blah, blah, blah. Oh, gosh. I'll get to it. Okay. He says, does have me wonder if a D&D board game exists. You know, like D&D Monopoly Life Candyland Edition. Okay. Yes, D&D board games do exist. They also don't really exist. And I will explain. They don't really exist because nothing in the board game realm will ever capture the feeling of playing an RPG. It's just not the same, and no board game designer is ever going to attempt it. It just doesn't work. It's a different medium. You know, it's like a movie capturing the feel of a video game. Yeah, you might get elements of it, you know, like Edge of Tomorrow, whatever, captured some elements of it, but it's not the same at all, okay? It's completely different. So, you know, on that end, if you are interested in D&D, but you think it's too complicated, or you can't get people into it, or something like that, you know, I understand where you're coming from. If you're okay with playing online with, you know, random people, there are definitely plenty of places to do that. Roll20, etc., etc. If it's specifically Dungeons and Dragons that, you know, sounds too complicated or other people think is too complicated, there are easier systems. You know, Fate is free and is a brilliantly designed system. Dungeon World is a simplified system.
What is this place?
It connects to the sanctuary. Less flashy than the Sainte-Chapelle entrance, but we own the building. Used to be part of our intelligence network. But the place has fallen on hard times.
I really didn't expect a cinematic here during Hanging with Mangg. It's not what we do.
Opportunities that come up. You might also speak to the intendant about renovating the building itself.
I'm not exactly flush with coin just now.
Any revenues the cafe generates are yours to do with as you see fit. The money is deposited in the chest in the study, and the more improvements you make,
the more revenue.
Quite. You might also find that expanding our reach into other districts will pay dividends.
Merci.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, you know, getting into RPGs is not as scary, I guess, as you might think. I mean, if you're unlike me, I'm sure that playing on Roll20 or something like that, just hopping in, not a bad way to do things. Or, you know, there are like play-by-posts and stuff like that you can read over and you can watch. Well, not watch, but you can read through how people play through sessions by play-by-post. Play-by-post is not really the same as sitting there talking to one another, but it gives you a good feel for how a session can go on, and you know, you can get your feet wet with that. But that's not really board games. And he didn't really specify why he wanted or was interested in a D&D board game. So I might just be missing the point, but that's just some general advice for RPGs. Bottom line, though, is if you're interested in RPGs, either through your own, you know, stuff or through my role-manging series, which has piqued your interest, try it out. Trust me. There will be nothing more entertaining in your life than a good RPG campaign.
The previous owners must have walled off a room in the main
I am consistently in search.
In what they found.
Okay. But then the other end of the spectrum. There are D&D board games. And there's a few different types. There is the most well-known Dungeons and Dragons board game is called Lords of Waterdeep. And really, this is not meant to emulate Dungeons and Dragons at all. It really just uses the theme and the lore of Dungeons and Dragons. A well-known city in the lore of shit. I don't even know what world that is. Faerun or Eberron. I don't know. I don't keep track of all the official stuff like that. But Waterdeep is a city in the lore, and it's a well-known one. And so Dungeons and Dragons, Lords of Waterdeep. It's a worker placement game, but it uses a lot of the
This'll do nicely.
Story elements of Dungeons and Dragons. So you each play a Lord of Waterdeep, and the goal of the game is to get victory points, and you do that by basically collecting adventurers, warriors, rogues, clerics, mages, and you send them out on you not explaining it great. You get quests, and you need to spend the adventures that you collect to complete the quest, and you get points for that, and so on and so forth. It's a worker placement game, and it's a very well-designed worker placement game. It's a great gateway one, and it's all kind of wrapped up in the Dungeons and Dragons theme.
It seems some royalist fanatic
So really, that
called Les Actes
I don't think that's what you're looking for if you're looking for a D&D board game. It's a great game, well worthy of praise. I enjoy it. It's also on iOS. Good stuff. I recommend it, but not really a D&D board game per se. Okay, so then there are more in line with what probably you're looking for, and that's the Dungeons and Dragons adventure system. And this is three different board games at this point in time that they've come out with. The first one was Castle Ravenloft, which is based on a very well-known RPG module. There's Legend of Drizzt, and then finally they came out with Wrath of a Shardlan, which is about a dragon, I believe. And so these games are all based on 4th edition. And this makes a lot of sense to me. Because if you play 4th edition D&D, you're like, this is kind of board game-esque. And so there's no DM in those games. You're just, all the players are working together cooperatively to go through a dungeon and clear it out. As far as, again, I have not played these games. This is just based on my understanding. And so the dungeon itself is tile-based. So as you move through it, you lay down tiles. And each of the monsters that appears has kind of a, you'd call it AI, I guess. I think you play, like, you draw cards to determine what their actions are, or it's kind of some set of programming based on the current situation. But the point is there's no DMs. You're all working to fight these monsters. And it uses a lot of 4th edition terminology and mechanics and stuff like that. And so it's basically 4th edition light, you might say. But it's still not D&D. You could kind of make it into D&D, I guess. If you wanted to add some role-playing to it, nobody's stopping you. You could role-play any board game if you really wanted to. But, you know, it's probably a bit easier with this because it's Dungeons and Dragons, and you can all see that. And, again, I haven't played it, so I don't know how close it is really to 4th edition. But it's not 4th edition. That being said, I hear good things about them, and I'm sure they're fine. I don't really have much interest in picking them up myself because I own everything for 4th edition. So if I was interested in that, I would just play D&D. But it is a much shorter playtime than, you know, a D&D session might be. Generally, there's no real prep time. There's no need for a DM. Everybody works together. You know, there's a lot of advantages to it, but then also it's not nearly as robust. There's not going to be as much role playing because it's a dungeon crawl, and so, you know, that's the closest Dungeons and Dragons licensed analog, I guess. Yeah. Then the last game that I want to talk about in the vein of that question is a game called Descent. Specifically the 2nd edition, because that's the one I've played. Or that's the one I own. So Descent, Journeys in the Dark, 2nd edition. And this is probably, I would say, as close to D&D as you're going to get in a board game. And this one does have a DM. You know, this one does have somebody controlling all the monsters and elements of the dungeon. And the rest of the players are going to be trekking through the dungeon. And, you know, they're going to be fighting monsters. That's definitely going to happen. And there's, you know, different classes. So there's, you know, there's a warrior, there's a berserker, there's a cleric, there's a rogue. You know, so there's all stuff like that. And, but then there also might be other goals that they need to accomplish. They need to get this, you know, grail, or they need to stop this from happening. There's different sort of objectives for each of the scenarios. And then there's also, you can do like a campaign thing where you kind of basically level up throughout the different scenarios. So you're going to go through different missions and you're going to grow more powerful, but then also the overlord, the DM, is going to grow more powerful. And so that, I would say, is the closest you're going to get to D&D in a box. Other than, you know, playing the starter set or something like that. Does it compare to D&D? No. I'm sorry. It doesn't. But if you're looking to just get together with a few friends for a few hours, you don't want to worry about anybody setting things up, you know, in advance and coming up with that, and they don't really want to, oh, I don't play D&D, I just play board games, something like that, whatever. Descent 2nd edition is the closest you're going to get, in my opinion, in my limited knowledge. I hope that helps in some capacity.
We're counting on you to save our operative. He's somewhere in the simulation. This will come in handy.
Yeah. So, what else did I want to talk about?
This one's encrypted. Wait.
Not really sure. I already talked about recent board game purchases last week. I haven't done anything since then. We did kind of have a mini board game day today where we played some Cash and Guns again. And that continues to be a great game. We played like 4 games today. I didn't win a single one, but it was still fun. So that's a good sign.
I think this data could really help us.
Ow.
Another piece of the puzzle. Well done.
I'm still trying to decide what I want to do as far as board game content on my channel.
Data is desyncing. You need to collect it or it'll be gone for good.
I mean, yeah, I could do reviews, but then you kind of gotta keep up on things, and you gotta
You know where the assassin is.
you gotta play plenty of board games with a dedicated group, you know, so you can review them. And then you gotta do something to kind of differentiate yourself from everybody else reviewing games. Like, how can I compete with the Shut Up and Sit Down guys? Or Tom Vassell, you know, it's tricky. I could just do, you know, how to play games, stuff like that.
Quick. Time is running out.
That could be an option, I don't know. I could just do playthroughs like I did with Arkham Horror. But then the problem with that is you can really only do solo games unless... because doing it with a group is just convoluted, problematic all over the board. It's just not ideal. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what kind of board game content people are looking for. I could just cater to my existing fans, or I could worry about how to get more fans doing it. I don't know. There's a lot of I don't knows in that whole situation.
You performed a great service for the Brotherhood, but others still need your help. We're counting on you to save our operative. Somewhere in the simulation.
I'm hoping that over the
Nicely done.
over the holidays, we get a lot more time with others to really crack into these board games I haven't played.
This data comes from deep within the helix.
Because right now it's kind of a busy time for everybody.
This one's encrypted.
But we'll see. Because if I get a group, I mean, really, it's kind of like a thing where it's like, you know, yeah, I could have just recorded us playing Cash and Guns today. And I'm sure some of you people would have loved watching it because it was pretty hilarious. But it's kind of like, it's kind of weird, you know? It's like, you guys mind if I just set up this tripod here and just record us? It's not creepy. but it kind of is. I don't know. I'll try one of these times to get the group thing going, because once I broach the concept, it'll be okay. And then, you know, it's kind of like, I'm not going to have the production values of something like Tabletop. And then, you know, there's a reason that they don't show some games on Tabletop. It's just not... What am I doing? See, this is just... There are some logistical problems with some games where it's just kind of hard to show what's going on. Because some games, a lot of stuff happens in just a player's head, you know.
Wow, this should make our researchers very happy.
I'll have you dead in your...
Keep up the good work. Good. We have enough data to trace our man's position.
I mean, I'd love to record a great game of Cosmic Encounter so people can see. Philo
There,
freak.
You have to save him.
Not
He's free.
Okay.
Well done.
Right in.
Good job. The more data we can get, the better.
Get into his line. I'll
Yeah, boy. I don't think I have much else to say about board games this week. Didn't play much of them this week, that's for sure.
3, 2, 1. Run! The simulation is collapsing.
Yeah. So that might just be all the discussion about it. At least, you know, Vestalence asked a question. That helped a lot. Thank you. Ask plenty more questions.
But there's more assassins to save and more data to find.
Alright, so as far as the channel goes then... Assassin's Creed will continue. Mangg Souls was surprisingly low on the list. I don't know if it's specifically Mangg Souls that people don't care for, or just the real-time weapon change. The poll did not discriminate. So, can't really tell from that, but that's okay. I wasn't really uploading that too quickly as it was. Lords of the Fallen will continue at a slightly slower pace.
I think this data could really help us.
Arkham Horror is done with now. The last video was uploaded.
This one's encrypted. Wait.
So I'm not sure what I'm going to do for that.
Data node is starting to desync. You better collect it before it loses all value. Nicely done. We need all the data we can find.
Dragon Age comes out next week. I will not... Yeah, I won't be uploading any videos for that, I don't think. And then Super Smash Brothers comes out, which I will be uploading stuff. I would imagine probably next Hanging with Mangg. Maybe I'll show that off. And Ziggy and I will be playing that.
The data is desyncing. You need to collect it or it'll be gone for good. Keep up the good work.
The Dark Souls challenge runs will continue every Saturday for the time being, because I like that.
Get to him now. There he is.
So, please feel free to join me Saturdays on my Twitch. I generally start around 3 p.m. CST.
Sending the data to the lab now.
Can't stop us.
I'll probably be doing... I don't know if I'll be doing the shield run. I've been kind of practicing, see if I can get some of the logistics down before I attempt it. But there'll also be probably a whip run at one point, a fist-only run, a soul level 1 run, you know, all sorts of fun stuff we can try. Feel free to tune in. I enjoy chatting with you guys.
Free. Well done. The data is breaking down. Get to it before we lose it. Excellent. This could hold some major Abstergo secrets.
And yeah, I think that's about it.
10 seconds left. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Get to the exit now.
Alright. So then as far as regular life goes, I have a funny Applebee's story that does not involve a female. It is just a funny story, which is kind of uncommon. Okay, so Thursday night, we went to Applebee's. We went to, like, the worst Applebee's of the 3 that we go to. Yeah, and we kind of just go to all of them equally. And, so we're sitting there, and there was 4 of us, and we didn't really have much to talk about. It was kind of just, because we had just gone on Wednesday night as well. So we're sitting there, and I'm not really hungry, because I had ate beforehand. I didn't think we were going to go, but we ended up going. I wasn't hungry, but I was like, you know what would be cool? Is if they had, like, mini pizzas here. That would be cool. And the others were like, yeah, that'd be sweet. So our waitress comes by, and, she was cool. She kind of had a Jennifer Lawrence thing going on. And I'm like, you guys got any mini pizzas back there? And she seemed very perplexed by that question. And she's like, no, I don't think so. Like, this girl started working there probably in the last month. And I'm like, yeah, but you got, like, the ingredients for a mini pizza, I'm betting. And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, how much would I have to tip you, in quotations, for you to make a mini pizza? And she's just like, well, we have kids' pizzas. And we're all just like, oh, really? Because, you know, when would we ever get to look at a kid's menu? We ain't got no kids. So, I'm like, okay. She says, I can maybe see if they could get one of those for you. And I'm like, yeah, all right. And so she heads off. She comes back a little while later and says, I'm sorry, we can't serve kids' menu items to anybody over the age of 12. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. If I go to McDonald's, I could have all the Happy Meals I wanted. I could have Happy Meals for days. And, you know, we discussed this, and she came back later, and I'm like, this really confuses me. I was like, your manager would rather me come in, order a Diet Pepsi, and leave than me give you money for food that you have. And she's like, well, that's what, you know, Jeff said, and you don't mess with Jeff. And one of my friends was like, it's like, bring Jeff over here. And she's like, you want to talk to Jeff? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let's talk to Jeff. So she brings over the general manager, that Applebee's. And this guy, she was like, you don't mess with Jeff. And so we're all picturing this real intimidating dude that's just gonna come over and be like, you either order what's on the fucking menu or you get the fuck out. You know, like, it's a real scary guy. You don't mess with Jeff. This guy that came over, man, oh man. I picture him as the type of man that enjoys model trains. Like, if I saw his Facebook and his cover photo was just him smiling with a thumbs up in front of a train set, I wouldn't be shocked. Just to give you kind of a mental picture. And so he comes over. He looks right at me, like she told me. She told him exactly who's questioning this. And he just smiles like the weakest smile that the human mouth can arrange itself into. And he just looks at me. And I'm like, alright, so apparently you guys have kids' pizzas, but you don't want to serve them. What's up with that? And he says, yeah, it's company policy. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't get it. Like, you would rather I order this Diet Pepsi and leave. Like, I have money, you have pizzas, we could make this work. I got plenty of money, I'll give it to you for food that you have. And finally, he said some very infamous words now amongst our group. He just looks right at me. He, like, half nods. And he says, you really want a kid's pizza. More ominous words have never been spoken. You really want a kid's pizza. And all of us just look at each other. And I pause for a moment because I'm not sure how to register this. And, like, I've gone too far now. I can't just make this big stink of things and then just be like, nah, I don't want a kid's pizza. I have to say yes. There's no other option. So I'm like, yeah. And he's like, mini or full? And I'm like, oh my gosh. I guess, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound or whatever, full. And he's like, I'll see what I can do. And he walks off. And it's like, see what you can do. You're the general man. What are you gonna do? And it's just, you really want a kid's pizza? It'll just stick with me. And so the next like 15 minutes or something like that, we're all just discussing what the hell he is gonna bring out to me. What is he doing back there to my kid's pizza? And the waitress came back over. And she's like, well, you got him to do it. Like, she was very impressed. I was like, yeah, baby, you know, I can do things. And, no. And I was like, he's not tampering with it, is he? And she got she didn't get offended, but she was so shocked that I would even bring that up. She was like, oh, no, of course not. And I'm like, he didn't seem too pleased with me. And she's like, oh, no, he's having fun with it. And I looked immediately at one of my friends, and I'm like, what? That's not what you should say after I ask if he's tampering with it. And she laughed. She's like, oh, no, he's having fun. And I'm like, this isn't good. This is not going to go well at all. Finally, she brings it out. I'm worried. And
He'll be hurling his guts out in a minute.
this pizza.
Piss off.
This pizza is 2 pieces of garlic bread covered in ragu tomato sauce and topped with some sort of cheese. It looked and tasted exactly like that. And it was shit. It was quite shit. She came back over and she's like, oh, how is it? And I'm like, great. Thank you. Exactly what I wanted. I may be consuming some other man's pubic hairs right now, but this is great.
One of our informants may have been compromised. She's posing as a scullery maid near
So I got what I wanted, I guess. I really wanted a kid's pizza.
Get her out if she's in danger.
And one of my friends was like, if I came here with my kid and he ordered a kid's pizza and got that, I'd be like, son, you got ripped off. And yeah, it was terrible. But they went the extra mile, I guess, and they made me a kid's pizza. It was like probably the only thing in their kitchen that they didn't microwave, so they had no idea how to make it. They're like, I don't know, take this bread and put shit on it. I don't know, then microwave it. I don't know. It was terrible, but okay. Then they charged me $6.99 for it. And I was like, oh my god, this is not a half-price appetizer. And they put it on the bill as a quesadilla grande. And I'm like, okay, they don't, you know, they don't have kids menus on in their POS system, or what is this? They had to put it in as something else. I have no idea. But I ate the entire thing just out of principle, and that was it. Okay, story's not over yet. Last night, we decided to go, of course, to Applebee's. But we went to a different one. We went to the best one we know of, which has the best service, highest quality food, stuff like that. It's the gold standard for Applebee's. Waitress comes over, and this is what I say. She just, and what about you? And I say, I'm gonna have a kid's pizza. And she says, okay, and you know you get a side with that. And I just look at my friends and I'm like, what? What the hell? And so she listed all the sides. And I got mozzarella sticks with it. And she's like, all right. And came back a little later with a kid's pizza. Now, this kid's pizza looked pretty much exactly the same as the other one. And it tasted slightly better. I still would never get it again, but it was slightly better. And, but the mozzarella sticks were great because that's just, you know, a half app, so it's fine. And, and then, okay, yeah. So it wasn't that great, but it was there. No fuss, no muss. And then The bill comes. I don't want to cover. I want to kill him. God damn it. And I'm very excited to see this bill. I got to see what's going on. Look at the bill, and I'm like, those motherfuckers. On the bill it says, kids cheese pizza, $4.99, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And so I took the bill. You know, after I paid and everything, I took it, I stuffed it in my wallet, and I'm like, I am going to go back to that other Applebee's, and if I see Jeff, the general manager, or that waitress, I'm showing them this shit, and I'm telling them my story. Because this is ridiculous. I mean, I know that that other place sets the gold standard, but I did not expect that level of discrepancy. Good lord. And so that just capped off that whole story perfectly. As much shit as that other place gave me, you really want a kid's pizza and all that. I go to the other Applebee's and it's just like, oh yeah, you know you get a side with that too. It's like, oh, how come it's not against freaking company policy? Ridiculous. Yeah. So yeah, that's the kid's pizza story. I won't forget that anytime soon. I hope I do see that waitress again before she gets fired or something. Because now I have something to talk about. Against company policy. What the hell? Yeah, you're real by the book over here. Ridiculous. Yeah. So that was pretty much the highlight of my weekend. There was a birthday celebration I was supposed to go to on Friday night, but there was going to be a lot of drinking downtown, craziness, and I'm not nuts about that, and I was like, maybe if somebody lets me know what's going on, maybe I'll go. And I was really only going to go because I'd probably get a funny story out of it to share with you guys. That's pretty much how I base my life at this point. And then I finally got a text at like midnight, but I was already watching Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was like, nah. Apparently it was a pretty crazy night. A couple of fights almost broke out. I would have been much more sad if fights had broken out and I wasn't there. But, yeah. We have a new server at brunch. For the last, well, ever since I started going to brunch, and ever since they started going to brunch, we've had the same guy who takes care of it, get our drinks, cleans our plates, all that kind of stuff.
What's so important to Selma?
And he's kind of annoying because he just wants to talk to us the whole time. We just want to sit there and eat our brunch. But he's very prompt with getting our drinks and so on and so forth. It's never been an issue. But for the last couple weeks now, we've had this new chick. Because he started like going home earlier. He got sick of us? I don't know. I'm not complaining though. Because she's better at what she does. But it's like, I'd rather have the old guy not talk to us, and this chick talk to us a bit more. But life doesn't work like that. Luckily, I'm a fantastic tipper. And bitches love that, so I got that going for me. I've been wearing, you guys have seen it, I think in a couple videos now. I've been wearing a beanie with the Jacksonville Jaguars logo on it. And for those of you who don't know, and you know, that was me a little while ago. I asked my buddy, like, who's the most irrelevant team in the NFL? And he just immediately said the Jacksonville Jaguars from Florida. And I'm like, okay. Because I'm sick of just everybody talking about, you know, the Packers and blah, 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 over and over. And I'm like, I'm just gonna rebel. So I bought a Jacksonville Jaguars beanie, and I've just been wearing it everywhere. And I took the joke so far that I actually started to learn player names on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I can tell you who their quarterback is.
Madame Goose sent me. You are discovered. You need to get out.
I can only tell you the quarterback for the Packers and for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's all I know. But it's like when I first started wearing the hat, people would just be like, name 3 team members on the Jaguars. And I'd be like, I don't know, go fuck yourself. But I was like, no, that's good. That's not good enough for this joke. I have to learn. It reminds me of like the other guys. Mark Wahlberg's character just learned ballet. Just like make fun of people that know ballet or something like that. That's kind of what it's like. That has nothing to do with anything. I've run out of things to talk about. It wasn't a very eventful week, as you might be able to tell. Other than the kids' pizza story. Yeah, so I think that actually might be it. This might be the shortest hanging with Mangg. Just not enough going on in the week. But it's alright. 47 minutes or so isn't bad. Ba-ba-ba. Tinder hasn't been too good, if you're still wondering about that. Oh, actually, I don't even know if I told that story. Oh, man, that's a big story. How did I... No, that's because it happened, like, Saturday or Sunday night. So it's been, like, a week. Okay, I do have something story to say yet. Alright, so last Sunday night, I got matched with a chick. 21 years old. Kind of plus sized, you might say. Family size. Some might say. Not excessively so. And she had a really cute face, so I was like, we can make this work. And she was 21, so I was like, alright, this is good. And she was like, she lived like 2 miles away or something like that. That's what it said. I was like, okay, this is good. So I messaged her Monday morning, because I didn't want to start a conversation on Sunday night. I messaged her like, hey, it's something real simple, and I'm wondering if I need to rethink my intro. Something more dramatic than that. But I was like, hey, 24 hours went by, no response, and I'm like, wow, what a bitch. And I was like, I'm going to say something snarky. That was my first thought, I'm going to say something really snarky. And then I was like, no, I'm going to message her, like, some lyrics from, like, Eminem's Stan or something like that. And so then finally at the last second, I changed my mind. And I did message her some lyrics, but I switched it to R. Kelly's Ignition remix. And so I just started messaging her the lyrics to that. Just line by line. And I spaced it out a little bit over time. But for the next few days, just nothing but R. Kelly. No responses whatsoever. Finally, I think on Thursday night or something like that, I get a response. And it is... she wrote, "Why are you still breathing?" And I laughed pretty hard at that, because that seems overly hostile for Tinder. And I was like, I'm talking with my buddy during this, and I'm like, this girl has no idea how to unmatch somebody. Because you can just unmatch with one click, and they can't message you ever again. It's done. It's like, this girl has no idea. And so I wrote back, I was like, just waiting for you to unmatch me, but I'm thinking you don't know how. And I didn't get a response. And so then I wrote, or you really like R. Kelly lyrics. And she responded again to that. And she wrote, LOL, guess I didn't realize. And I'm like, how the hell do I respond? This girl went from wanting me to die because I was being a creep, apparently. And now she's realized that it's R. Kelly lyrics. So she thinks it's funny. I was like, what do I respond to this with? So I went with, finally, R. Kelly gets all the girls to respond eventually. And she wrote, LOLOL, oh my god. And at this point, around this point, I discovered she had edited her profile. And she put, I'm actually 18, not 21. And so at this point, I'm thinking, this girl has so much going against her in my mind. I'm not sure this is going to work out. And so I tried at that point to continue the conversation. She responded a couple more times. But then it finally fizzled out. And I'm like, it's probably for the best. Because following the half your age plus 7 rule, she's kind of out of my range. Also, she's an utter moron. And I was just like, I can't believe I even, like, and she still has not unmatched me at this point. Just sitting there. And it's like, I can't believe I actually got more than one response after messaging all those R. Kelly lyrics. Laughing my ass off. It was so funny. I got one other match from this chick. A bit narrower in the waistline. A bit. But she was like 25. But her profile description just said, must hate cats. And I was like, that's not a person you should be. There ain't no good from that. So, you know, of course I messaged her, but I didn't get a response because she probably can tell I'm a cat person. So yeah, the Tinder shit. I'm just gonna take a new picture once I'm done with No Shave November. Be like, yeah, I got this mustache. What you know about it? Gosh. Alright, there we go. 54 minutes. I think that can end it off. I have said my piece. But no, that, you know, questions help. If you guys ever come up with some questions about board games or RPGs, video games, politics, movies, I don't know, whatever you want to ask me about. Helps me pad out hanging with Mangg. But until next time, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.